So I read book number 2 out of my 10 books in 10 weeks challenge. So this week's book was Experimental Film by Gemma Files. I didn't review last book actually, so Satan's Harvest, the first book I read. I forgot to rate it. So my rating is going to be just one of three things. So thumbs up, thumbs down, or middle thumb. So meaning thumbs up, recommended book. I really enjoyed it. You should read it. Thumbs down is I did not like that book. I don't recommend you guys read it. It's not a recommended read on my part. And the middle is just meh, an average book. It goes 50-50. Could read it if you want to, but don't necessarily recommend the book. So it's as you wish. So let's jump into that book. So Experimental Film was a decent book. It's kind of a mix between The Ring and American Gods. If you've ever watched or read any of the books or watched the movie or the TV show, you'll know that The Ring is essentially an evil spirit in a cassette tape, and you need to make copy of that video, make sure that others are seeing that movie, if you want to survive, essentially. So that's The Ring. And American Gods, gods being here, and you have to worship them for them to still be alive. So the book is kind of a mix of these two concepts, I'd say. I'll talk about more why I feel like it was kind of both these concepts into one. For me, the book was divided in two. So the first half I really enjoyed. The book started as if the book was going to be a slow burn. So it started really slowly. There was a lot of concept being thrown at us. I really enjoyed that. I like the concepts. I feel like the book would have been a bit better if she would have continued with these concepts, but unfortunately they just ideas thrown at you and never fully developed. And I think that's a bit sad for the book, because the other half of the book is just everything happened all at once, and just like the book is being rushed into publishing or something like that. That's the feeling I got from the second half, where because of the different tone of both these halves, I feel like the second half was just rushed and everything's happening, action, 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 and end of the book. Whereas the first was just slowly building up, to something that could have been better in my mind. There's a character switch around the middle of the book, so that's why I feel like the switch at the end is a bit rushed, is that there's kind of a character switch. There's no real character arc. Instead, it kind of builds up. Yeah, at the start there's a character arc, but then right in the middle, instead of just continuing on that slow hill, it just goes straight up. She believes everything that happens is supernatural, and everybody's on board with her. Even though they don't really believe her, everybody's on board. They're like, we love you too much, so we're going to do whatever you say, even if it involves quote unquote murder. So it's just, yeah, I feel like the character arc is a bit lacking here. So let's talk about the story. So a film critic come across a tape where she sees a woman that disappeared 100 years ago, and she's already kind of involved in trying to figure out what happened to that woman. Miss Whitcomb, by the way, is the woman that disappeared. So the narrator, she matter-of-factly know that this woman disappeared 100 years ago, and then she becomes really involved. She wants to know what happened, how did she disappear? The woman disappeared on a train, a moving train. She just disappeared. So there's no thought of her jumping off the train or anything like that. It's just weird. She just vanished into thin air, essentially, the woman some 100 years ago. But then we learned that this woman might be the first Canadian woman who made a movie. So she's the first Canadian woman director, essentially. And that's why the film critic got even more involved. She wants to do a documentary on that woman. So she dig up more films that this woman has made. She starts to understand how she disappeared. It involves a goddess from a certain myth. I'm not told who the narrator is. The narrator is called Lois Cairns. Usually I don't like POV books. I really enjoyed that one, mainly because in the first part she's kind of telling us how she's going to develop her story, how she's going to develop the book. So I feel like that was good. It's kind of a way to break that fourth wall and very immersed us into believing that the story is really happening or really happened to her, actually. But yeah, she looks more and more into these films. By the way, while she's kind of searching for that woman who disappeared, she's having a lot of health issues at the same time. So bad case of insomnia, a lot of migraine, hard-hitting migraines. Also, she's having seizure. Everybody's telling her to slow down, that she should take a break, be more healthy, stop taking so much drugs, maybe just, get better, and then finish off with your documentary that you're working on. Afterwards, just take a break, take it slow. But she never listens, and that's the whole point of the book, you'll see. It's just that she never listens to anybody. When she gets those seizures, she even sees a doctor. That doctor tells her, hey, you really need to slow down because this is a sign that your body is giving you that you need to slow down. And she doesn't slow down afterwards. Even if her doctor tells her that, her mother is telling her to slow down, her husband, everybody's telling her friends, everybody's telling her to slow down, and she never does. I feel like she was like my 4-year-old daughter. She just don't listen. When you told your child, stop that, you're gonna get hurt, or just be cautious, you might get hurt. They don't listen, then they got hurt, and you're like, I kind of told you that. I feel the same way in here. It's just that, just take care of yourself and just listen to what people tells you. So I feel like the character becomes unlikable. At the start, I kind of liked her, even though she was talking way too much about how the film industry works here in Canada. I was like, okay, fine, but can we get into the story? So I feel like, there were some things like that just where I lost some kind of involvement with the book. So it turns out that Miss Whitcomb was making movies to talk about this goddess, so Lady Midday. That goddess appeared the minute before noon. And if you're being caught at not doing your job, she slices your head off, essentially. So Miss Whitcomb, the woman that disappeared 100 years ago, she's making movies to worship that goddess because she's being marked by that goddess because of something that happened with her father when she was young. I don't want to talk too much about that. It was kind of an okay part, but something happened with her father. He was seen as not working, and Lady Midday was mad at him, and she marked his child, so Miss Whitcomb. that's it. Yeah, I said I wasn't gonna go into details, but I did. So yeah. So she's making movies to worship that god, that goddess. But even then, that goddess wasn't really satisfied. So she kind of killed her, but made her vanish into thin air. And so yeah, Miss Whitcomb is kind of in another realm with the goddess that's not really explained, and that's totally fine. I like that it's not everything is explained. I like a lot when authors do that, that they don't try and explain something that's unexplainable. That's why I really dig Lovecraft. That was my entry point into horror, actually. Yeah, I don't mind that she don't tell everything. I feel that that's great. But yeah, she's somewhere with that god. So all this seizure that Miss Cairns is experiencing while working on that documentary, all the seizure she's having, every headache she has, it's all Miss Whitcomb telling her, hey, stay away from here, trying to protect that woman before she gets marked by that goddess. It turns out it's too late because Miss Cairns, as I said earlier, never listens. Don't listen to anything. So the book could have been avoided by her just listening and not being kind of a douchebag. She kind of is. I don't want to say the B word because that's, I'm above that or whatever. But she's kind of, yeah, she's kind of is. Miss Cairns is being marked now by that goddess because she watched too much of these films and she's too involved with the story or whatever. I don't fully understand that part once again. And once again, that's fine. I don't need to have explanations. It's just that she has a seizure. I think it's her third seizure she has by that point. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, yeah, it's all supernatural. So it's all due to that goddess. And from now on, everybody believe me, it's all because of that goddess. And she decides to open a door to the realm of the goddess. And with that door, try and trap that goddess into a film, essentially a film reel. I did not mention that before, sorry about that, but all the films that Miss Whitcomb did was on silver nitrate, which is, the way I understood it, is the first film reels that existed. So it kind of the first iteration of films, essentially. And those films are highly flammable, and that's a very important point. And that's why I said I should have mentioned that earlier. Sorry about that. But once again, here she tries to open that door and trapped that goddess on that reel, on that film reel that's highly flammable. So with a lot of people, they just do that. She kidnaps a guy from an old home, and everybody's like on with this. They're going to kidnap that dude, bring that dude home. Hey, let me see. Yeah, forgot to open up my light. Damn. So yeah, they kidnap that old guy. He's like 100 or so years old. He was there at the start with Miss Whitcomb. He's the one who told Miss Whitcomb that they should worship that goddess that is going to help her or whatever, and they didn't. So here he's telling her, hey, I could film that movie, but just by having the film reel in my hands, I'm going to imprint my thoughts on that reel. And once again, everybody's on board with that. They're all like, yeah, fine, old man, you can do that. Yeah, we fully believe you. That's quite all right. That old man dies, by the way, so they're charged with murder, but that's kind of swept under the rug. That's not important. So yeah, that man has been murdered. The police comes in, they have confiscated everything, so the film reel also. And then Miss Cairns, she wakes up in the hospital. She's blind. She doesn't see anything. She had another seizure. We're at four, I think, 4 or 5 seizures by that point. She's blind, and she's like, we didn't burn that movie reel, that film reel. We need to go pick it up and burn it. So they go to the police office, and then the police officers are like, hey, sorry, somebody stole it from the police department. So you're like, how safe is that city? And it's in a big Canadian city, actually. It's in Toronto. It's the biggest city here in Canada. It's not, it's not New York or whatever, but it's like, I think it's 6 million people. So you're like, the police in Toronto are that bad? Yeah, I don't think so. Like, you can get stolen in your own police department in Toronto. You're like, yeah, that felt a bit weird. Again, sorry about that, but it's something that just didn't fit with me personally. But yeah, let's continue on. So it's been stolen, and somebody is doing a public viewing of that tape. What happens here is kind of in The Ring. Lady Midday kills most of the attendance of that public movie reel, of that movie that they're seeing. So killed most of them. A lot of them were injured, and then Miss Cairns comes in. She's like telling that goddess, no, you cannot do that. And she comes in, burn the reel, or the reel burns itself. Don't fully remember that part. Everything's happening so fast, it's frantic. People are dying left and right. There's fire, there's smoke. So the reel burns and kills the goddess at the same time. So why I felt like this reminded me of The Ring is, for one, a movie that's killing of people. That's essentially The Ring. Why I think it reminded me of American Gods, it's just that gods needs to be worshipped, otherwise they disappear or quote unquote die. So I feel like that was kind of the motivation for the goddess. It's never fully explained, but that's how I like to think of her motivation, was to just be worshipped, and if it's not enough, I'm going to kill you or whatever, because I really need to be worshipped like the goddess I am, or whatever. But that being said, I felt like those two things combined could have been done just a bit better. Just two things. It could have been one of those two things that could have made that book better. So firstly, maybe continue with the same tone that you have from the beginning. I don't mind a story that's slow, that takes its time and so on. I just feel like the second half or last third of the book or so-ish, around that, was rushed, and a lot of things happened within that, and nothing happened in the first part. So that's just how I felt for that book. So it could have been just keep that slow pace, maybe have 50 more pages or so to keep that pace going, and the arc of the character just slowly building up again to where she would have understood that it's really paranormal. But here nothing really happens. There's no determinate thing that happens to explain why she thinks it's all supernatural. It's just another seizure, just like the other two she had previously, where she was just brush it off as just, oh, I'm just exhausted, I'm going to sleep after I'm done with this documentary. But now it's just, yeah, everything's supernatural, and I'm willing to sacrifice the lives of the one I love of the ones I love to go on with that narrative, even though all the 200 pages previously she wasn't buying that supernatural edge. So yeah, so that's the first thing. Second thing would have been maybe to make that book shorter and just action packed supernatural things. So maybe 100 pages less and just fill it, with action from front to back. So that I feel like that would have made that book a bit better. One of those two things. That being said, that book was kind of folk horror kind of things, but not really because it's happening in a big city, but it involves myths and old deities and some religions. So I feel like it kind of is a folk horror story, but at the same time it's kind of a possession type of books because she's kind of being possessed by that demon. Not really possessed, but in the way of being possessed. So, and it's kind of a haunting books at the same time because it's not clear what the power of that goddess is or what the worship of that goddess is at the same time. But the ranking for that book is going to be the middle thumb. I was gonna say middle finger. Sorry about that. Middle thumb. It's a 50-50 for me. They had some great ideas, Origin of Evil and stuff like that I thoroughly enjoyed. I just feel like the second part of the book just don't match with the whole tone of the book previously. So yeah, read at your own risk, I guess. It's a 50-50 book for me. A recommendation though, if you really are into folk horror that feels like real life things, kind of a found footage kind of book, if I could say, quote unquote, found footage, because it's not really found footage, but here in that case, yeah, it was. She found the host footage. But here's the Elizabeth Hand, Wilding Hall. That was way better. But I really feel like Wilding Hall did a better job because the tonality of the book is the same throughout. And once again, it's about a disappearance of somebody who just disappeared into thin air with some old deities, some weird worshipping going on in that village, in that house, and so on. So yeah, Wilding Hall did a bit of a better job. In Wilding Hall, instead of being movies, it's music. An English folk band, that rent an old house and decide to do a record their latest album there. And some weird things are happening before the big reveal, when that person disappeared. From this get-go, it's told that somebody disappeared in the house. You just don't know who. If I remember correctly, you don't know who until the very end. And it's not really explained. It's all foggy and mystery how it happened. And I really dig that a bit better than what she did here in experimental film, where it's more explained how she disappeared. So yeah, that's the second book. Next book is going to be James Herbert, The Fog, that I'm going to review. So next Thursday, forgot to say that again. But so videos are going to come every Thursday at noon Eastern Time, American Eastern Time. So just you'll see those videos happening every week for 10 weeks, every Thursday at noon. So yeah, next book is going to be James Herbert, The Fog. I really enjoy it from the beginning. Can't wait to review that book. It's gruesome. There's a lot of body horror involved. It's really good. So yeah, this is going to be the next book. I'll have all the books to follow in the description down below, as well as the dates when I'm going to start reading those books. And as I said again, the videos are going to come in every Thursday at noon, just so I can have a set-paced calendar set up for the next quote-unquote 10 weeks. We have now 8 weeks to go. I really enjoy doing that. If you like seeing this, please hit the like button. Or if you like the book or don't agree with me, if you agree or not, feel free to just comment down below and let me know what are your thoughts. I'm even open to suggestion, if you want me to read some horror books that are not into the list down below, feel free to just say, hey, have you read that? Maybe you should read it. I'm always open to suggestion. That being said though, I'm going to see you in a week. Peace out.